Europeans and their cultural heirs in the Americas have tended to celebrate the changes that ensued. Native Americans, and those who choose to identify with them, on the other hand, have expressed their pain and anger. The feelings of both sides are often passionate, and the young Indian woman is at the eye of the storm. As long ago as 1939, the novelist Hanyo Long commented, "She represents more than any one moment of history can hold." The story of the image of Marina, as the Spanish called her, or Malinche, as we now call her, is itself an interesting one, full of sudden plot developments and changes of direction. She was not always the focus of so much attention. In fact, after the people who had actually known Malintzin had all died, almost no one mentioned her for well over 200 years. In that period, the image of an indigenous helpmeet was altogether too commonplace to merit notice. But in the early 19th century, when Mexico broke away from Spain, any friend of the Spaniards came to be seen as a dastardly foe. In the anonymous 1826 novel Xicotencat, Marina was for the first time suddenly presented as a lustful, conniving traitor. The story had wide appeal in a newly nationalistic setting. A sexy, sneaky Marina led her people down in story after story for the next 2 centuries, in Mexico and elsewhere. In the 1970s, Mexican and Mexican-American feminists came to question the paradigm, pointing out that the girl herself had been given into slavery by her own people. Whom was she betraying? What should she have done when she was given into the hands of the armed Spanish men? Would her critics seriously recommend suicide as an affirmation of herself and her people? Rather than seeing her as a master of Machiavellian politics, said the feminists, we should acknowledge that she was a victim more than once. In the 1980s and 1990s, a number of writers adjusted this notion somewhat, arguing that perhaps she was not entirely victimized. After all, she was clearly a resourceful and intelligent young woman, a survivor. She did what she could within her own context to preserve her sense of herself in a complex and shifting terrain, in a world in which it was unclear how to draw lines between groups, or what was the best course of action to take. In her time, we must remember, there were as yet no people who saw themselves as Indians, just varying ethnic groups and some particularly strange new arrivals. In postmodern North America, the new style of thinking has seemed especially apt to some theorists. Malinche can be envisioned as a bridge, a woman who moved successfully between at least 3 different cultures. Like the Chicano people, who are both Mexican and American, and hence perhaps neither, she was a hybrid. She has become the transfigured symbol of fragmented identity and multiculturalism, writes one literary critic.